Hi, I'm Stan Wright, and I'd like to thank you once again and welcome you to Hallockville Folkways. Today we have a very special luthier on the show today who's going to explain to us what goes into making guitars, and he's one of the best here in New York, and he's located right here on Long Island in the Suffolk County area. John, I'd like to thank you once again for coming out here.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. All of this stuff looks very interesting. You know, I've been to your shop a couple of times and didn't have time to ask a lot of questions. But I've always been amazed at all of this stuff, especially on how to bend the wood and things like that. What made you want to get into this? Like most kids want to be a policeman or a fireman when they grow up. What made you say, hey, I want to do this?
Well, it would have to go back pretty far, because I was into it as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was well aware of the guitar in many forms, but I think perhaps the beginnings of rock and roll, if I have to go back that far, I'm probably dating myself, but into the 50s, when rock and roll was just getting going, a lot of exciting music was happening.
Right, yeah.
I was involved with other music as well. I was training on piano and a few other things at the time, but the guitar was always a distraction enough to me to spark my curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
I think I did want to play the guitar very badly, but I was more curious as to how it worked.
Right,
what
yeah.
made it work, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a few special events happened pretty early on. One was that we had an old junker guitar lying around the house,
Right.
which stood in the corner of the room, and every time I'd run by it, I'd strum the strings on it, and there was only about 3 strings
Yeah, I
left
think
on
everyone's
the
got
thing.
a guitar laying
Yeah,
around the house.
and it was good for nothing. And it wound up down in the basement one day, which was a favorite place to experiment. It was my lab of sorts.
Right, yeah, yeah.
And one day down there, I just was so curious about this guitar, there was nothing left to do with it but to smash it. It was, some might think, a violent act, but it was more out of curiosity than anything
That's
else.
the beginning of punk rock, huh?
Exactly. So things started with a bang, literally. I wound up and wrapped it around a lolly column in the basement.
Oh, man.
And it was a very interesting sound, but more than that, it revealed the inside of the guitar to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious about all those little parts and pieces inside of it. I never knew they were there, you know, I didn't know what it was inside. And it got me to thinking that there was something more to it than just on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So as things went on, as time went on, there were other things that came into the picture, like the steel guitar, the archtop guitar.
Right,
Santo
yeah.
and Johnny's music was happening. I was listening to things like Johnny and the Hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also listening to some of the jazz guitar players and the country music.
Right, right.
And everything that was good music, or that I thought was good music, was of interest to me.
Right. They're all acoustic instruments, mainly.
Primarily acoustic, but I'll
Yeah.
tell you, I must confess, I wanted an electric guitar in the worst
Yeah, right.
way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's what spurred me on to making a triple neck steel guitar. I was about 10 years old when I got interested in that.
Right, yeah.
And I started to make one.
Mm-hmm.
And I got as far as making the 3rd neck on it, and it's nothing more than a big slab of wood with 3
Right.
necks on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped there because I got interested in an acoustic guitar at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have time to finish it. And it ended up in the family Christmas Yule log fire one day. I just happened to be glancing as my dad was putting it in, and it was a beautiful fire.
There's a lot of newer guitars that I'd like to throw in the fireplace myself.
That's true. They burn for a long time. The solid ones burn longer.
Yeah. Well, that's great. It might be safe to say that Jimi Hendrix got that idea of smashing the guitar from you, you know?
Well, maybe. I don't know if I want to take credit for that.
Well, if you did it in the 50s, he didn't start doing it until the 60s, so we'll give
was
you
ahead of
credit
my
for
time.
that. Yeah. Well, like you were saying, being curious about what made this thing work, the thing that's always fascinated me is how do you bend the wood, you know?
Well, it's a very good question, and most people have never seen it done. And unfortunately, we're not in a setting where I can show you how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not as complicated as you would think it is. It's very impressive when it's done, and after it's done, the bent side, after coming from, let's say, a piece like this. Now, this would be a strip that's cut out of a flat block of maple,
Okay.
and it's thinned down to a state where it's fairly pliable, fairly
Oh, okay.
flexible.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
See, now to get the kind of shape that you're looking for to make a bent side, such as this one. Now, this is almost in its finished state, ready to go into a mold.
Mm-hmm.
You need a mold or a form to contain the shape of it. Now, this up front would show you what the mold is like.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a set of sides presently in there that is
Mhm.
complete and ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
But this is bent using water on a hot pipe process.
Okay,
It's a
that was my
steaming
next question,
process.
yeah.
And it's slowly bent over a hot iron that you would bend it over and work it into position to match the mold as best as you could, and you'd be flipping it over to catch the other side,
Oh, okay.
the other bend, flipping it over all the time, constantly checking it against the form.
Right. Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah. This would be a set of sides also that's finished. I say finished in that it's ready to receive a top and a back.
Okay.
And it's also, since you see the two holes on this side, this is a rather more advanced form of a guitar side. This is something that I've been experimenting with within the last couple of years. And there are sound holes on the side of the
Right.
guitar.
I've always thought that
Yeah.
was a brilliant idea. I've never seen that before.
Well, in the playing position, if you were playing like this,
Right. Yeah.
the sound would be projecting directly
Mhm,
toward
mhm.
the player.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah.
A lot of players try to use monitors on stage when they're
Yeah.
playing. You know, I believe using this acoustic player won't need a monitor as much.
Well, one of the interesting situations about an archtop guitar like this, for example, and it happens on some flat-top guitars
Mhm.
too, is that the F holes on the front of the guitar, right there and on the other side, tend to focus and project sound very directly
Exactly.
out front.
Right. Mhm.
The problem with that is that the player doesn't really get to experience the same kind of sound that the
Right.
audience is hearing.
Mhm.
And as a result, you may not be able to balance yourself as well to the music.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this idea really helps. It works very well
Mhm.
in allowing the performer to really hear the guitar.
Right. Yeah. Is there a certain name for that? I know we use the front holes are called F holes. Have we gotten a name for this yet?
Well, no. Side sound holes is
Uh-huh.
is as simple as you can put it, but this happens to have a few other features that have been incorporated into it. On the inside, there is a rail system
Mhm.
along the sides, and that rail system carries a sliding panel, which from the outside they would close these holes off.
Mhm. Right.
I don't have them set up here, but they would close there and
Oh
close
yeah.
there,
Yeah. Right.
and allowing just the front sound hole
Mhm.
to produce sound.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I call the guitar, this particular model, I call the Rocket convertible,
Mhm.
because it's rather space age
Right. Yeah.
in more ways than one, perhaps, but
Yeah.
it's
That's
very different than a traditional
it's a
setup.
great idea. It's about time something like that comes along, though. Yeah. Definitely. So when you're making a guitar for someone, do they become like a pain in the neck to you, like calling you back, saying, "John, the guitar's too bright. You know, maybe you can make it a little darker sounding."
Well, yeah, there are very interesting situations that occur in the beginning of building an instrument for somebody, and an independent luthier is at an advantage rather than a commercial manufacturer making an instrument. The advantage with the individual luthier is that you can talk to the person. You can talk to me. The
Right.
person, the guitarist can come and show me what it is he doesn't like about
Right.
what he's already playing, and that's very
Mhm,
important
mhm.
information. You try
Right.
to assess the values of what his or her musical needs are,
Right.
and weigh them out as to how you're going to approach this instrument.
Mm-hmm.
So you keep those kinds of ideas in mind, and it's a direction and a focus for me to begin building toward.
Mm-hmm.
So my experience with selecting the woods to start with is very important
Right.
in getting off to that direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I could very well choose the wrong kinds of woods that would be either too heavy or too light to get the kind of tone that we're aiming for.
Mm-hmm.
So if I know ahead of time, what the application is going to be as well, what is the scenario in which the musician is going to be playing the instrument? Will it be solo? Will it be with
Right.
other musicians? Will it be in a trio? Will it be in a big band?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Will it be live? Will it be in the studio?
Mm-hmm.
Or will it be at home?
Right.
And so there's many different kinds of setups that you can build directionally too. But even after you begin building in that direction, all along the way you are evaluating the conditions of everything as they come together. The spruce for the tops,
Right.
the maple for the back, which I have back here,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a few plates out in front of you can see.
Yeah.
That's the soundboard, that's spruce.
Is this a bottom or a top?
That is the top of the guitar, and that will be the soundboard, which is the vibrating part of the guitar,
Mm-hmm.
which is accepting the vibrations from the strings through the
Right.
bridge.
And this one here is a bottom.
That's the back, will go on the back of the guitar, and that's made of maple. And
I see it's routed out too.
yes, the inside and the outside resemble each other. They're carved in a similar fashion that a violin or a cello would be built.
This is 2 pieces of wood.
That's 2 pieces of wood
Mhm.
joined together, and if I may just show you a back. This is a big chunk of maple, which is thick. You can see how thick it is. That's how that piece started out, like this. And it has some resonance to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the resonances are the kinds of things that you listen for when you pick up a piece of wood and you're going to select it or reject it.
Right. Uh-huh.
A lot of that selecting and rejecting is done from the beginning when you're out buying your raw material.
Mm-hmm.
But when you bring it into the shop, you have a chance to really further refine that selection. So this was actually, before it was glued down the middle, was one block of wood originally out of the tree.
Right. Right.
It was cut down the middle and then opened up like a book and then glued down the middle. That gives me enough gluing, it gives me enough guitar surface to make the back, or the whole width across the back.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Otherwise this would be too narrow. See?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of carving, reducing the wood in weight along the way as you get those plates thin enough and light enough to be much more vibrant.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And the whole process is not unlike building a race car.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is that a car like that is built for a very specific
Exactly,
job,
right.
for a very specific purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of an instrument is a thoroughbred like that too,
Right.
because it's being built very specifically
Mm-hmm.
for a tone.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's like, unlike making furniture, you make furniture, and you're not worried about the sound of the furniture.
Well, some chairs are don't sound very good. I agree.
Yeah, I could imagine this would be a lot tougher because you're dealing with tone.
Yeah.
You're dealing with tone. You're dealing with weight. And stuff like that.
Mhm.
I tend to give you a lot of credit for your guitar making simply because I play guitar myself. But when I mention your name to people, I really never say anything about the mandolins because I don't know anything about mandolins. But mandolins, is that your main thing?
Well, not right at the moment, but the mandolin, of which there's one right there, that's my latest design. That's the newest design, which I call the Radio Flyer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a Radio Flyer guitar model here, but that was the inspiration for this particular design.
Mm-hmm.
The mandolins, the way I started out in business is I met the mandolin brothers.
Mm-hmm.
back in 1972.
Mm-hmm.
And that is perhaps where I got my best education, because I am self-taught.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And there weren't any teachers around who could teach how to build a guitar.
Mm-hmm.
There were very few hand-built guitar makers around at that time. There was a few, but it was there was no access to them. When I met the Mandolin brothers, they were looking for a repairman at that time, and the timing was perfect because I was not doing anything special at that moment, but I was building instruments, and they liked what I was making, and they asked me if I wanted to be their repairman.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's how it began. Now, back in the 70s, the guitar market was much different than it is now, and there's been some changes in between that time to now as well. But back then, there was no activity for mandolins. The door was wide open for mandolin making, which is the area that I chose to go, because I had some ideas that I wanted to see done on the mandolin.
Right.
I always liked the instrument very much, and the mandolin was at its peak in popularity and let's call it perfection at the time, but back around 1924, the interest was dying out for the mandolin. But before that time, the mandolin was incredibly huge as a popular instrument. Things like the banjo and the guitar came along to replace it.
I know Gibson was making mandolins for a while. I don't know if they still do that.
They do.
They still do.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. When I've mentioned your name before, people, you know, the players, they say, oh, some of them, the first thing they said was, oh, he makes the best mandolins. And I said, oh, no, he makes guitars. No, mandolins. I said, that's right, yeah, he makes mandolins. But this is a very pretty one. I can't stop looking at this. Are the parts on a mandolin, are they called by the same name as a guitar? Like, would we, you know, call this the bridge and the tailpiece? And
the parts are essentially the same. Yeah, they're not really much different. The proportions are entirely different, but probably more fundamental than that is the approach to the concept of a mandolin is that in itself different than the guitar.
Right.
There's a whole family of mandolins, by the way, that equate themselves in parallel form to the violin family, where you'd have violin, viola, cello, and mandocello, which I make all of those instruments too. But this would be the soprano instrument of the family.
Yeah, I'm noticing that the top and the back, if they could zoom in on that, the back and the top look different. Is this what they call tiger wood or flame or something like that?
That's curly maple. So it's called by many different names: flamed maple, tiger maple, curly maple, pinstripe maple. And there's a variety of patterns of the design as well.
Right.
When it comes to maple, the preferences are for fancy maples. And not that an instrument has to be made out of a very fancy wood. It can be made out of very simple woods successfully. But the tradition has it that we use rather pretty woods. And those pretty woods are increasingly becoming harder to find.
Right.
When I started out, the woods were plentiful, easily had, and very cheap. That's not the situation anymore.
What happens when you stain a guitar? Does that change the tone, the first coat, or?
Well, yes, it does. Here I have a guitar that is, for example, there's no finish on it.
Right.
This has been sanded out almost to the point where it's ready, but the neck has not been fit to it yet, but that's another situation. Finish-wise, if I were to put finish on the instrument, it would change the pitch of the body. The resonance would change. It would probably make it a little bit duller sounding.
Okay.
It takes the the crispness out of it. But as a finish dries, in time, the solvents begin to leave the finish, and the finish hardens, and the frequency or the resonance begins to come back to the instrument, to almost to that
It
same
would be the
point.
same effect if you wanted to have something refinished, like if I bought an old guitar to you and say, John, you know, finish this, it's all scratched up.
Well, there's such a thing as the vintage market now, and that has changed the way people look at instruments and value them and regard them. So I used to be restoring and repairing for many years, which I no longer do that. I don't have the time to do that anymore. But when I was doing it, it was a period when there was a lot of learning and growth in that area of vintage instruments. And one of the important things was to leave the original finish intact.
Right.
And I was having instruments coming into my shop that were not that way. They didn't believe in that at that time. If someone got a scratch on it, they would send it back to the shop, and the guy would sit there with a spray gun and put a few coats over it, or maybe scrape it off and change the color.
Right, yeah.
And those kinds of things happened.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time right now. What I'd like to have your buddy Howard come up, play one of your instruments, and we can get a chance to listen to the tone.
Why, sure.
Yeah.
I'd like that myself.
Okay.